carp fishing in the colder months, it isn't really an easy task, but if you get your location and tactics right, the fish are certainly there to be caught. And in this short video, I'm going to be running through all my top tips and tactics to help you catch a few extra carp this winter. The first thing which you want to do when you're turning up to the lake in the winter months is find out where the carp are holding up. Now, location in carp fishing is key at any time of the year, but more so in the winter. And the reason is, from past experience, most lakes that I've been to, the carp tend to hold up in certain areas through the colder months. Normally, down at this lake, as you can see, there's a platform over here. They tend to hold up down here, and up until about 2 minutes ago, that is where I was going to fish. And the reason the fish tend to hold here is because it's a park lake, there's constantly people coming down with bread to feed the ducks, and the carp know there's going to be a natural food source here through the winter. Sometimes they'll hold up in deeper water, sometimes they'll hold up in lily pads or reeds, but I've just took a walk down the shallow end of the lake, and yeah, I've been able to see 2 carp short. And in the colder months, that is something which you can't ignore. So I'm just quickly walking back to the van now. I'm going to get the fishing gear and go get set up down there. And to be honest, I am feeling pretty confident, because once you've got location ticked off the list, everything else becomes a lot easier. This is the swim where I'm going to be starting the session. Originally, I was going to set up further down the bank. I seen a fish short in front of that bush just after I got down to the lake. But while I've been getting the fishing gear ready at the van, I did notice a couple of fish out in front of this peg, and I feel like this is going to be the perfect starting point for the session. My game plan when it comes to getting the fishing rods out, I'm just going to cast a couple of single hook baits out towards where I've seen them fish short. And the reason for this is, if I don't catch, I can simply reel in after an hour or so and move the hook bait around the swim until I find exactly where them carp are holding up, which is really important at this time of year. Once I start catching in a certain zone of the swim, that's when I'll look to introduce a little bit of bait to try and attract more fish into the area. But for now, I'm going to get the rods out, get the single hook bait into the lake and see if we can catch ourselves a winter carp. I'm just about to get the first rod out into the lake. I thought I'd run through the setup which I like to use in the winter months. For the rig itself, I'm using a fluorocarbon D rig. The reason I'm using this rig is it's made out of fluorolink. In the colder months, the carp aren't moving around an awful lot, they're not feeding, and as a result, the water clarity tends to go a lot clearer. And I just find using a fluorocarbon or fluorolink, it camouflages much better on the lake bed and stops potentially spooking carp from near the rig. For the hook bait itself, on this rig I'm using 2 grains of yellow imitation sweet corn. The reason I'm using these hook baits, they're super colourful, and it's going to help the carp find the hook bait much quicker than if I was using a darker one. Now these 2 pieces of imitation sweet corn, I've had them soaking in a pot with the citrus plume juice, and yeah, I don't think there's a carp in this lake that's not going to be able to resist that. On the rig, I've also attached a PVA mesh bag. Inside this mesh bag, I've got 2mm Scopex squid pellets, and all I'm going to do before I cast it out is get some of the citrus plume juice and rub that onto the PVA mesh. That will break down around the hook bait, again giving out more scent and attraction, helping the carp find the hook bait out in the lake bed. But yeah, it's a super simple setup. All I've got there behind the leg clip as well is just a bit of tubing. Again, it just helps keep things pinned down on the bottom, avoiding spooking carp. So it's a super simple setup, but I feel like having the PVA mesh and an attractive hook bait is key when it comes to fishing in cold water. And there we have it, I've got the first rod out in the lake. Yeah, I've cast it in front of a bush in the peg next door. I've seen a few more fish there, so I felt like I needed to put a rod in that area. So I've just sank the line there, clipped on the bobbin, and when I'm carp fishing, I like to fish with a super tight line from the rod to the lead. And the reason for this is, I believe it gives you the best indication when a carp picks up the rig. But in the colder months, I like to do things a little bit different, and that is by fishing a drop on the bobbin, so the line's sort of semi-tight, semi-slack. And the reason I like to do that is you get this extra movement on the bobbin, and by doing that, if there's any fish moving in the area and they touch your line, you're going to get an indication. If I was to fish in a swim for a few hours doing this method and I hadn't had any bleeps, I'd then look to move elsewhere, as I know there aren't any carp in the area. So I'll just turn on the R4 there. I've got it on maximum sensitivity. so I'll know if any fish are in the area. But that's one rod out. I'm going to put the other rod across to the far margin where I've seen probably 4, maybe 5 carp show now. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident, and hopefully it won't be long until that rod whacks round with a nice big winter carp. The rods are out. It's time to sit back, relax, watch the world go by, and it is up to the carp gods whether we're going to be able to catch a fish or not. In the winter, you do have to be a lot more patient compared to when you're fishing in spring and summer. The feeding spells are really short, and yeah, you're not going to be moving around an awful lot, and when you're not moving around, you get cold very quick. So it's important to make sure that you're wearing the correct clothing so you're able to stick it out for the full session when you're out fishing. So starting off by my feet end, I've got some ZT polar socks, and I'm also wearing a pair of wellies. By doing that, it's keeping my feet nice and warm, and also if I stand in any mud or puddles, my feet aren't going to be soaking wet. Moving up, I've got some waterproof trousers. Yes, it's not raining today, but while I've been setting up, I've been on my knees, in the grass, in the mud. If I catch a couple of fish, hopefully if I catch a couple of fish, it's likely my legs are going to get wet when the fish is on the mat. So make sure that you've got a good pair of waterproof trousers. I'm also wearing a ZT hoodie. These are a godsend, honestly, it keeps your body so warm. So yeah, I've got a ZT hoodie, and to finish off the look, I've got a woolly hat. So make sure that when you're fishing in the colder months, you've got good clothing, so you're able to stick it out that little bit longer out on the bank, and potentially it will get you a bit extra bite. I was starting to get a little bit concerned. I'd had a couple of bleeps on the left-hander, but no indications on the rod which I chucked by the bush. And yet all of a sudden, when I was just making up a fresh bait mix, which was going to be my next change of tactic, yeah, the right-hander has just absolutely screamed off. We're attached into a winter carp. Here she comes. Come on, that is a proper nice scaly mirror. And, oh, it is in the net. Oh. That is why you go winter carp fishing for results like that. A proper, scaly, fully scaled, making it worthwhile sitting out in the cold. Get in. And there we have it, the first fish of the day, and it just shows if you make the effort to get out in the cold weather, carp is certainly there to be caught. We've still probably got about an hour of daylight left, so you never know, we might be in chance of getting another bite or two. If this was caught on the right hand rod, I'm not really that confident with the left hander, so what I'm either going to do is cast it into the same zone where I've just been able to catch this, or I'm going to move it down in the margin and put a little bit of bait over the top. But there we have it. If it's the only bite today, I'm more than happy with this lovely winter fully scaled mirror. Well, I've decided to move one rod down the margin, and I've introduced a little bit of bait over the top. And with the other rod, I've cast it back in the same area where I've just been able to catch that fully scaled. Now, I would have showed you the bait when I was dropping the rig just there, but in winter, it's really important. The bait that you're feeding in the swim is high attract, and it's also really easy for the fish to digest. So all I've got in here is sweet corn. It's bright in colour. Any fish swimming around, we're going to be able to spot that, drop down. I've also got the new test bait there. That breaks down really easy. It goes really soft in the water. Again, it's super easy for the fish to digest. And I've also got a little bit of hemp in there just to help keep the fish grubbing around. Another great bait in the winter months are also natural baits such as maggots and worms. I'm not using them down here today because there's a few other nuisance fishing here such as roach and perch. However, if you fish in a venue where it's purely just carp, make sure to add a few maggots into your winter mix, as carp absolutely love it. Anyway, yeah, like I said, that bait is over the left-hand rod. The right-hander is back out towards where I just caught that fully scaled. Probably got about half an hour left of daylight, so fingers crossed we'll be able to catch one more before we head for home. I'm all packed up, back in the van, and it is currently 5:23 and it is pitch black outside, which leads me nicely onto my final tip of the video, and that is when you're fishing in the cold months, make sure you take one of these with you, a good old head torch. Trust me, since the nights are so long and the days are short, you need some form of light with you so you can basically see what on earth you were doing. But yeah, I'm all packed up, back in the van, and I hope you found this video useful and it inspires you to get out on the bank and catch a carp or two this winter. Cheers for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.